Hi everyone, welcome back. So today is going to be my wrap up of September and October. I've been tending to do 2 months at a time because I don't read like a ton of books, but I was looking at my list and apparently I read more than I thought I did for September and October. So I have about 9 books that I read. I enjoyed pretty much all of them except for this one. I mean, I didn't hate it, but I didn't really enjoy it. But I could dive into this one first. So this was one of my reads. I finished it when it came out, which would have been the first week of October. But yeah, The Sunlit Men, I liked this better than the Wizard Guide book, but I did not like this as much as Tress or Yumi. And I do think that some of it is because I haven't reread a lot of his books recently. And also, I have heard that I think this is even taking place more in the future, like after Stormlight 5. So it's like, well, no wonder I'm lost. I mean, obviously, there's still enough here to enjoy a story, and there's still enough to know who this person is. But there is some hints in this book about some actions that were taken by this main character, leading him to where he is now, and you're missing that backstory. So that's kind of the only thing, and you're kind of feeling this disconnect between some of the emotions that he is having due to that because you don't know that buildup. So that's kind of this was probably one of the weakest books that I would have on my list that I read for September and October. I really didn't enjoy this one too much. I don't know. I was glad it was done, and then I don't know. There are some good parts. There are. Like I said, I liked it better than the Wizarding Guide. I mean, that one, the Wizarding one, I just wanted to DNF it. I mean, I was totally done with that one. I kept going because I wanted to give a good review. Well, not a good review, but a review that was well detailed. That kind of good. Not good as in, oh, I'm forcing it to be good. So different type there. But, so yeah, I don't know. Like I said, wasn't as bad, but still kind of down there. And I hope to soon also do a review where I'm talking about the 4 Secret Project books. I want to talk about them substantively and also the book itself. This one's actually really cool because it's got the colored pages here on the side. It's got the black. That's really cool. And then there's some gorgeous like inside art too. I will say that I think they used 2 different artists on this one. So the internal art of the book itself is quite different from, I'm trying to find a picture here. It's quite different from the outside. So, and I wasn't too impressed with the inside art. Here's one. Well, I mean, I don't know if I want to do that one just because people might be like, oh, that's a spoiler. Okay, so here's that one. So like the art's like really different, whereas you have something gorgeous like this. So I was a little disappointed that the inside art didn't look like that because that's just so pretty. But yeah, I like the way this looks, but I wish I liked the story better. But I know there's a lot of people that really did enjoy the story. So just because I didn't like it doesn't mean you won't like it. There's some that are really up to date with all the Cosmere knowledge, and I can't remember everything like that. So for me, I just wasn't enjoying it quite as much as some of the other stories. And plus, I haven't read a lot of the novellas, like Dawn Shard and stuff like that, and I believe that's pretty important for these books. At least that's what I've heard. I don't know because I haven't read it. So I'm a little behind just because I've only really read the main books, and it's been a while. So just a heads up there. If you do read it, just maybe brush up some knowledge on some of those, or do a reread. Definitely recommend that. And then, okay, going into probably my top favorite book that I read, and I looked back because I'm like, oh yes, this would be for September and October, and I was so happy because I just want to talk about it again. But The Will of the Many, I loved this book. So good. Probably one of my top for the year. It was so much fun. It was one that I couldn't put down. It's definitely one that is going to always have you on the edge of your seat and you just cannot stop reading. This was definitely a 5 out of 5 for me. But it has more of like a Roman kind of feel to it. It's definitely different from his Lucanus trilogy. But at the end, you kind of have some similarities in the sense that you can tell there's something deeper going on, and then you're probably going to be like, well, I'm probably going to need to reread certain bits with a different point of view reading it, which you kind of have to do that with the Lucanus trilogy just because there's a lot of like looking back. This book doesn't necessarily have that, but there's maybe some hints towards the end that there could be. Just something interesting, but they are completely different from each other. So if you didn't like one, doesn't mean I wouldn't recommend not trying The Will of the Many. If you did like the other, I still recommend The Will of the Many. So I recommend it either way. So much fun to read. But it's definitely one where you might want to start on a Friday so you can just binge read it the entire weekend because you're not probably going to get any sleep. But yes, it's pretty enjoyable. I definitely would recommend. You do get that school setting too, which I enjoy those books. I do, where it has more of that academic kind of feel. You got some of the tension there, and then there's just some life and death tension as well. And I really liked the main character. He makes a lot of good choices, in my opinion. And I don't know, I like when it's like, I actually like what the main character is doing and his character, like the character of his personality. I like that, and I liked this main character. So that definitely made it more enjoyable too. He picks his friends pretty well, and I enjoyed it just for a lot of aspects, but there's a lot of good points. Like I said, totally recommend. So if you haven't read it, definitely try it out. And it's a pretty big book. But I will say, though, that it does kind of end on a cliffhanger, and the next book isn't out yet. I think that one's going to be called The Strength of the Few. So, yes, if you want to be in agony waiting with me for the next book to come out, read it now, because I'm dying for the next one. And okay, so jumping into another great read. This one I actually got an ARC of, so I was super happy to get an ARC of that, and I did do a video on it, but The Hexologists. I loved this book too. So this is the same author that wrote the Senlin, or the Babel series, but Senlin Ascends. And while I liked that series, it did have a lot of weak points, especially the last book. It's a very unique book and book series. So I liked it. And I did do a video on, I think maybe you should check it out. But The Hexologist is completely different. Just like how The Will of the Many is different from the Lucanus trilogy, The Hexologist is completely different. So if you didn't like the Babel series, I recommend checking this one out. I actually read this after The Will of the Many, and I think it was probably a pretty good follow-up book, just because it was a little bit more calming to read, where the tension didn't feel quite so high, but it was also really enjoyable. It was more of one where like you just enjoy the little detail scenes, like the everyday moments. But it follows this married couple who are hexologists, and they're trying to solve this kind of this mystery with the king. And while they're doing that, while they're trying to solve what's going on, they're like doing all these different they're interacting with different kind of magical elements of the world. There's one point where they like dive into like these graves, and they're kind of in this weird like, I don't know how to describe it, but they're almost in this weird other like realm kind of thing, and they can kind of see what was going on in the past for that person. So like almost like captures of their memory moments. Pretty cool. I liked that scene. So there's a lot of really cool scenes. There's another scene where they like dive into like a shadow. Like they have artifacts that allow them to do that. So I really did enjoy it. I just had fun just reading it, literally just for its enjoyment, just those everyday scenes. So I had a lot of fun with that. It's not like action-packed or anything. There are a couple fight scenes in it, more with like magical items, but it's not known. I wouldn't say that the story is known for that kind of action-packed feel or fighting, which is also pretty similar to the Babel series. It's more of like you're just kind of there for the story and the characters. And that's what the author does really well. He does really well with the characters. And I liked these two characters better than the Senlin characters and Senlin himself. I wasn't a fan. He was written really well for his character. I just didn't like his character. But the author does a great job with the character builds. So yeah, definitely recommend that one if that sounds like something you might enjoy. Like I said, I have another video on it, so if you want maybe some more details, feel free to check that one out too. So now I have two kind of more, probably, I don't know if I would describe them necessarily YA, but they could probably fit in that category. But actually, I probably have 3 YAs that I've read. One's an arc, and then the other 2 were not. But I'll just say all 3. So I've Blood Over Brighthaven, the Encyclopedia, Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, and What the River Knows. I enjoyed all of them. I really did. So I'd probably rate Blood Over Brighthaven the highest, and then the Emily Wilde's, and then What the River Knows. So I recommend them both, all 3, if that's something you want to check out. But Blood Over Brighthaven. So that one, the only reason why I hesitated by saying they're all YA, this one is probably the one where I would say could probably be with either, because there are a lot of dark moments. There's a lot of in-depth themes going on. This same author that wrote The Sword of Cayenne, and it was probably, I'd put them on the same level, which Sword of Cayenne's more in that, probably that more adult kind of fantasy, whereas this one would be too, just because the themes are just so strong in it, and I mean, there are some dark moments too, and there's just so much world building going on in this. So yeah, but I would also, I don't know what category, there's probably some subcategory that I don't know about that would better fit. But I really enjoyed this. This is more of another kind of academic feel book, but more dark academia. And there is some magic going on, but the main part that made this book so enjoyable is just the in-depth themes going on and the revelation at the, kind of towards the end of what's actually happening and how dark it is. So it's definitely something that you probably don't want to, I don't know, like if you're wanting to read something more happy, I wouldn't lean towards this one, but I definitely recommend reading it just because I really did enjoy it and it was really good. It is a standalone, so it's by itself, so I mean you can just read it, enjoy it all, and be done. You don't have to wait for the next book or anything like that. I will say though, I wasn't too fond of the ending. I was a little disappointed. I felt just kind of abrupt, and I was like, oh, it's over. That's not like, it wasn't exactly a happy ending either, so that might change your mind on reading it too, because if you're someone that's like, oh, I kind of want things to wrap up nice, this one doesn't really do that. But yeah, I did enjoy it. I really did. The themes are really strong in it. The characters go through a lot of character development, and the magic system's pretty interesting. It kind of feels more of like kind of like a computer coding kind of magic thing going on. So it's interesting. It's a little harder for me to grasp the magic system in this just because I'm not really as familiar with how it was described, but I know there's probably a lot of other people that would be able to get a better grasp on that, especially if that is more, if you're more familiar with computers and everything like that. I am not. I ask for help. So, and then the next one is the Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. I had so much fun with that. This one is not a standalone. It is, I don't know if it's going to be a duology or a trilogy, but I do know there's another book out. And I think it's actually coming out early next year. So I don't have to wait too long for it. But this one was really fun. It was like more of your typical YA feel. But I liked it in the sense that, yes, it is about fairies, but it's not about more of the Sarah J. Maas kind of fairies. This is more of the typical cunning, dark, trickster feel fairies, which I like. That was so much fun. I enjoyed reading this one so much more than how fairies are written now. So yeah, I definitely recommend this one if you want, a fun YA book. I in my video when I talked about this one, I kind of compared it a little bit to like the Cruel Prince trilogy, which I love that one, but the fairies kind of feel more similar in those two worlds, where they have more of the tricking going on and everything. There is going to probably be a romance in this series, but in this first book, it's not focused on at all, which is nice. So you just get to enjoy the story and some fun fairy moments. So it was fun. I really did like this one, and I'm super excited for the second book. So this will be one that I'll probably reread before the second one, and then I'll read that second one pretty quickly. So I had fun with it. So if you're looking for a fun YA that you just want to sit down and enjoy in a few days, pick that one up. I had fun with it. So jumping now to What the River Knows. This one I did receive as an ARC. Hold on a second. I'm just going to pull it up here. I have everything in front of me, but it's taking me a minute. Okay, so this one, yeah, I rated it more of probably a 3.5 out of 5. And I did enjoy it. I really did. But there was a few moments that I was just kind of, I don't know. I don't know how to describe it, but it didn't feel like the depth was there, or the connection was there. There is more of kind of a stronger romance feel in this book. And the person who is on, what's his name? But anyway, Wit. He doesn't feel very well fleshed out. And especially their communication with each other, it's very shallow and it's repetitive. They kind of just repeat the same thing. Like, it's just, they're withholding secrets from each other. And so it's like, well, where is that connection coming from? So that's lacking in that area. The story was interesting. So Inez is, she found out her parents are missing but presumed dead in Egypt, and she lives in Argentina, and so she then goes to Egypt to try to find them. And the last that they were seen was with her uncle, and they're more of like archaeologists. And so she goes to join her uncle and his team to essentially find the tomb of probably Cleopatra. I believe it's been a little bit, but yes. And so they're doing like an expedition to go out there, but she's going out there. She's forced herself into their group. They don't want her there, but she's forced herself into that group because she's hoping to find out more about what happened to her parents, because she does not believe they're dead, while as everyone else does. So that's more of where the premise of this story is coming from, and the plot of it. And it's done well. I mean, I liked the story. I really did. It's definitely more of that YA feel to it. Like, I read it really quickly. But there was just a lot of moments that felt either repetitive, or the dialogue maybe felt a little clunky at times. There's some revelations that are had in it, and she kind of gets tricked a couple times, and I'm just like, you really didn't see that coming? Like, come on. Like, I understand it's family, but like, come on. So like, there was a couple like really frustrating moments, especially with the main character. And then, like I mentioned about the romance, just kind of felt a little weird. But there was some good moments at the ending where things kind of picked up a little bit. And then there is, I believe there's going to be other books, because this did end on a cliffhanger. So that's another thing. It kind of ends with like this revelation too. And I don't remember what it is, but it frustrated me because I'm like, really? I don't know. But yeah, it was good. I did enjoy it. But it was just those few kind of minor complaints that kind of took away from it a little bit. But it wasn't bad. I still enjoyed the story. I mean, I didn't want to DNF it or anything. I did really enjoy it. And I had fun just picking it up in the evening. So I recommend it. I do. But yeah, it's just hard to rate sometimes the YA books, just because when I'm rating them on the same category as some others, it's like I need like a different rating system, because it's just a different level. So now jumping into, I did read one kind of spooky book for October. At least I wanted to try it out, but I did read the Stephen King The Shining. That was fun. I did do a video on that one. That was my first Stephen King book, and I appreciate all the comments of giving me some recommendations of some of his other books to read. I have added them to my wish list, but I like to wait for sales. I don't know if his will go on sale, but I think The Shining did go on sale after I got it, which was frustrating. But I do have them on my list to watch for and to check out. So I'm excited to try more of his books, because I did enjoy this. I did have fun. I should have watched the movie, but I didn't watch it for Halloween. But I enjoyed the book. At first, it's kind of a little tedious because you're just kind of mainly getting the backstories. And for the main character, Jack, he just keeps going back over his memories all the time. And it is important to the story because it does explain how his anger is getting triggered so easily from the hotel because it's playing on these memories. But it does get tedious after a while because you're like, okay, I'm tired of hearing about his drinking problem. Like, move on. Like, I don't know. So you do get kind of tired of that. But it is important to the story. And I feel like, yeah, the movie wouldn't be able to capture that as well, of that internal struggle going on with him. But then, probably about halfway through, and then of course, towards, more of the end, you start getting really the spooky and creepy elements of the hotel, and that was fun. That's when I started having fun with it, and I was like, ooh, this is good. I enjoyed it, especially when the kid starts seeing I think the creepiest one was the guy that was like acting like and dressed like the dog, like a dog or something. That was really creepy. And then when the elevator keeps like moving up and down on its own, that's another creepy scene too. So there's a lot of really like creepy moments, and so it was a good like read for October. I had fun with that, and I'm glad I tried it out too, and I'm glad I enjoyed it more than I thought I would. So that was definitely fun. And then this was a fantasy book that I read, and I read it because I saw so many great reviews, and so I was dying to try it out. But Grace of Kings, this was a great book too, and I recommend checking it out. It has kind of that feel of like Sons of Darkness, where it's more of this omnipresent kind of point of view of the characters. And at first, with both books too, it's hard in the beginning because it's switching point of views, and you're just like, okay, so who's going to be the main character, and who am I really following, or what's going on? But once you then, and it's the same with both books, once you finally are getting that feel of what's going on in the characters, then it just takes off and you're hooked, and it's really good. And I enjoyed Sons of Darkness and Grace of Kings, and I really did enjoy it. There was you get there's two main characters, Cooney and Mata, and they both have completely different opinions on how the Empire should be ruled. One's rule more of this brute force, this other one's more merciful and finds more of that talent in people to try to cultivate, even if they were his enemies. Whereas Mata just wants to make everyone pay for everything. So it is interesting to get those two dynamics going on. And at first, they do start off as friends. And so it's interesting to see how they work together, even with those differences. And then once they become not friends anymore, it's interesting to then see those differences really come out. And how they probably do actually need each other to balance each other out, even though Cooney's method is probably more preferable. But yeah, so I enjoyed that story. I really did. I had fun with it. I'm reading the second book now. I believe there's 4 books, but I am on the second one. And I'm still enjoying it just as much. Probably more just because I am familiar now with the world. And it is not jumping around as much. It is jumping around a little bit in time, though, in this book, which kind of can be a little bit confusing. But it's kind of sticking more towards a single character, at least so far. I don't know if that'll stay true. But I am enjoying it a lot. It is really good. So definitely check that one out, especially if that sounds like something you might like. I don't think everyone will probably like it just because of that point of view and that jumping around. I don't know if that's something everyone's going to like. It's kind of, it can be a little hard to read at first. And I mean, whenever I read those, I'm always like, ooh, is this for me? I don't know. And then I do keep going, and I did enjoy it. But I do understand where it's like some people are probably just going to be like, this isn't my type. So take that in mind before you give it a try, if that is something like your kind of style of reading that you like. Because there is a lot of kind of point of views I'm just not a fan of. But I am becoming more of a fan of this style point of view. I wouldn't have said I was, but I am becoming more of a fan of it. Especially between Sons of Darkness and Grace of Kings. I am really enjoying that. And then last but not least, I did read another arc, and this one I did finish recently. So I haven't done a video or anything on it, but it's the Nightshade Academy. So thank you, NetGalley, for this arc. All my arcs I've mentioned are from NetGalley, so I do appreciate those. But this was a fun read too. This would probably be, I should have put this with more of the YA books I was talking about, but it's kind of similar with the Blood of Brighthaven, where it does have some of those more darker elements. And what I really enjoyed about this YA is there was no romance in this book, and I liked that. It's hard to find YA now without that. And this one didn't have it. I could see it maybe in a future book, but I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if there isn't. And I enjoyed that. But yeah, this book, I rated it between a 4.5 out of 5. I didn't know how to rate it. The main reason why I am not giving it 5 out of 5 is I didn't really like the main character. He is, the main character is Yashi, and he kind of does a lot of things that I'm just like, I get annoyed with after a while, and he's very repetitive with things. And it's another kind of academy feel book, which I do like those. So it starts off with he witnesses a murder taking place, and the murder happens from his best friend's sister. So she kills someone, and he's pretty well changed by that moment. So this book does start off, the first chapter is like a murder happening. So as I mentioned, it's a little darker of a book, but yeah, and there's some murders taking place later too. So yeah, there are some dark moments, but it's not like all over the book or something. But yeah, he becomes changed after witnessing that, and he starts to question the empire that he's a part of, because the empire then took that sister and kind of like raised her up as a guardian. And these guardians are determined by there's like 20 students that get selected to go to this academy, and Nightshade Academy, and then if there's only 5 people that end up passing at the end, so they get filtered out, and then these 5 then become guardians, and they're more of like these essentially these soldiers and guardians of the empire. And so they're pretty high up there, and they have, you know, skills that are more kind of like soldier type skills. So he gets changed by that, and he starts to question why they're changing her story. And unbeknownst to him, the Empire is watching him, and he gets selected to join this academy. And so he's in this academy now, but the whole time he's questioning whether he should really be there or not. That's what I get annoyed with. It's like, at first he's just like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do this, I'm in it. And then he has this change where he's like, I don't want to be here anymore, this is awful. And his attitude just like goes way down. He's just constantly moody and upset and mouthing back to everyone. And it's just like, okay, well, if you want out, like, either leave or just, you know, deal with it. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, because I don't know. Because, like, they make it so you can't really leave, but he should have just left earlier, just never have done it. But then you don't have the story, which I understand that. I mean, the story has to continue, but it almost feels like, realistically, he probably would never have joined. So yeah, that was kind of my main complaint, was his attitude. I was getting really annoyed with him, and I was getting tired of following him. But for other than that, I did enjoy the story. I thought it was pretty well done. I always was wanting to see what was happening next. I enjoyed it. And in the end, there's a cliffhanger. So of course there's a cliffhanger. And now I'm just waiting, because I actually think I will want to continue the series. I had fun with it, and I enjoyed it, and I would want to know what happens next. And I think now, with where the main character is at, I don't think he would be as whiny anymore. So I'm hoping that's some character development going on. And I'd like to see what happens to his friends too. So I do want to know what happens next. And I had fun reading this. So check it out if you want to check it out, if it sounds interesting to you. But I did enjoy it. And like I said, I read probably about 9 books for these 2 months. I pretty much enjoyed all of them. My lowest rating would be this one, But other than that, I enjoyed all my other books. I recommend them all. So if they sound interesting to you, check them out if you haven't already, because I had a good reading, couple good reading months. And so I'm happy with that. Normally there's more books that I didn't like. And so I'm happy to know that I actually had a pretty good selection. That makes me happy, as I keep saying that. But anyways, check them out. And if you do, or if you agree or disagree, feel free to let me know. But other than that, thanks for watching.